Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya.
Victory to the Lord Govinda and Gopala, who dwell in the heart of the divine consort Radha. Victory to Hari, victory to Govinda.
Gopala Radha Shama Govinda Hari Hari 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 Gopala Radha Shama Krishna Govinda Hari Gopala Radha Shama Krishna Govinda Hari.
Om Ramanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Ganamurtim Dvandaititam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamashadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Bimulamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tan Namami. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, to whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one is the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion, and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Good evening, everyone, and aloha to those of you who are here and the live streaming audience. We've made a slightly late start tonight, which we apologize for. Technical difficulties, they call them, and they come up in all areas and walks of life. And that's partly why we hold satsang, because you can hear the scriptures, the non-dual truths of the scriptures particularly, or even the qualified non-dual scriptures and the dualistic scriptures, which are very beautiful too, many, many times, but sometimes they often raise more doubts than they clear. Especially with today's mind, restless mind, mechanical mind, materialistic mind, often confused mind. Definitely not that if thine eye be made single mind that we covet when we enter into spiritual life, that the seers advise us to try and acquire by meditation and concentration and the other limbs of yoga, which India is so popular for in her various darshanas. So satsang helps to clear that up. Many of you probably were with us for the class on Sunday, and you heard some profound teachings on the devotion of non-separation, saw some illustrations, some visuals in the form of charts to help make it clearer. But even then, very difficult to go away with that kind of clarity, as you should, and meditate very deeply upon it within. That's why that Svetashvatara Upanishad sloka is so beautiful, that the seers of India, they beheld the Devatma Shakti. Devatma Shakti is a wonderful word. Deva means divine, gods. Shakti means the dynamic power that's running through them. That's their underlying power, dynamic power. We just sang about her at our arati just before we went online. And so Devatma Shakti they saw that divine power in everything after they had removed the limitations of their own intellect. It was always one and pure, but the forms of nature, which are her own forms of nature, have covered her, so she covers herself. There's stories of Holy Mother, my Guru's Guru, Sri Sharda Devi, who was very veiled when anyone came in her presence, especially men. She would keep herself veiled, and then you'd have to have darshan with her in that fashion. And so Swami Vedananda wrote a beautiful hymn about her. Actually, we sing it quite often when we sing Prakritim Paramam Abhayam Varadam Nararupadaram Janatapaharam Sharanagata Sevika Toshakarim Pranamami Param Jananim Jagatam And he has one verse where he says Raja Patavrite Nicham Sharada Gyanadaike Papebyona Shadaraksha Kripamayi Namostute Kripamayi Namostute. So, full of grace, Kripamayi Namostute, I salute you again and again. He was her attendant when he was a very young boy. Ramakrishna took her to Holy Mother and said, this boy will serve you well. He's very pure. Swami Vedananda, his name was Kali, this pre-monastic name, named right after the mother. So this beautiful stotram says, Lajja patta vritti nicham, O mother in modest veil, always the best of all womanly qualities, that very retiring, modest, behind the scenes beauty, that once you get a glimpse of her, all of a sudden throws you into this deep samadhi, like Shiva and Kali standing on his breast. You've seen the beautiful images, the murtis of Kali standing on Shiva's breast, and he's gone into a swoon at seeing her intricate and delicate, fantastic beauty. So scriptures are full of that kind of reference, and understanding the symbology of those and then taking them deep within the heart is very important. And that's actually one of these questions that came in today from one of our devotees. This one is right here in Hawaii. She says, I really enjoyed your introductory class on devotion of non-separation, which was last Sunday. Also next Sunday, by the way, we'll have the second part of that. She goes on, when Holy Mother says, worship ends with absorption in meditation. Start here in the heart and end here in the head. Neither mantra nor scripture is of any avail. Bhakti or devotion alone accomplishes everything. Unquote. What do you think she meant by this? Well, of course, she's speaking from a very high standpoint. If she had been speaking at a different level of her own consciousness, then she would have been very much advising you to do the mantra. There were stories. She gave the mantra to hundreds and maybe thousands of people. She was the mother of the Ramakrishna order after he passed. He left her behind to be the Jagat Janini, the mother of the universe, the mother of the whole order. So she gave initiation to many, many hundreds of beings, most of them Hindus, but some of them even the English beings and some Americans who saw her and met her. So she would say to them, here's the mantra, it's the most precious thing I have to give you. Practice this deep within your heart. So she says, start here in the heart and end here in the head. So you take the mantra and you water it with the tears of your devotion. It's like a seed. And if the Guru gives you a mantra, then that's considered sacrosanct. It's coming straight from a lineage, hopefully, you should make sure it does, coming straight from a lineage that has repeated it hundreds and thousands of times over many lifetimes, passed from guru to disciple in a line of succession called Guru Parampara. And so if you get a mantra like I did from her devotee, Swami Sheshananda, then you can see that it's come straight through this line of great souls, and you can have great confidence in it. And then it says here, neither mantra nor scripture is of any avail. She's speaking from a very high place, so I've come down a bit and started speaking of it from here. She says, start here in the heart. Now, what else you have to do is start with the heart, is take the scriptures in there. You have to shruti, hear them first, and then manana, you have to roll them over and over in your mind, and then nididhyasana, you have to bring them full cycle and realize them in deep meditation. So again, that's a process that starts from your lower understanding to your higher understanding. So if somebody unschooled or without a guru was to read this by Holy Mother, they would conclude erroneously that the mantra and the scripture are no good. That's not what she's saying, believe me. She was very, very big on the mantra. She had practiced mantra until she became known as Japaharini, the one who became perfect in the art, the spiritual art of japa. She was known throughout the three worlds for this, is why Ramakrishna called her the incarnation of Saraswati, the incarnation of Lakshmi, and the incarnation of Kali, all three goddesses in one. Now those three goddesses are called Tripura Sundari. Tripura, triple, and then Sundari, the most beautiful. And those, along with the mantra, are a four-part teaching that they give you about mantra, that she used to tell her students when she gave them the mantra. The first part is what you hear. You hear it spoken from the lips of the Guru, and you take it and say, you shouldn't give the mantra away, so let's take it one that everyone knows, Om Namah Shivaya. Say you're a Shaivite, and you went to your Shaivite Guru, and he gave you Om Namah Shivaya. So now you take that as the first part of a four-part mantra. People take that and go away, and they never think about the other three parts ever again. They may recite it over and over again, like Ramakrishna's story of the parrot that says Om Namah Shivaya all day. But when the cat seizes it, it forgets the mantra and squawks its primal death squawk. See? Hundreds and thousands of repetitions of that mantra didn't do the parrot any good. So we don't want to be like that. We want to learn what the mantra means, and you're going to learn that with these other three goddesses, Tripura Sundari. The mantra comes from Saraswati, the mother of arts and learning, of knowledge and wisdom. So the scriptures reflect that. So you can't do without the scriptures, you can't do without the mantra. So remember to take it in context. When she says, mantra and scripture are of no avail, she means at that highest level where you've opened up the crown chakra. Then, as Ramakrishna used to say, in samadhi, the Vedas are about as useful as a tank when there's a flood everywhere. You're not thinking scriptures anymore, but back down here at the level of heart and gut, you see, to trying to get through the Brahma Granthi and the Vishnu Granthi, that's that membrane right there that's so hard to get out from being reborn with your ancestors and get into being reborn with the devotees. It's a very difficult thing for people to do. It's a hard transition for them. Many people fall back into the rebirth process, the realm of the fathers, the Pitriyana. There's the Devayana, the Pitriyana, and then the Tiryan Marga, they call it, the path of the gods, the path of the fathers, the ancestors, and the path of the lower births. Lower births here would be being born in a human body without any knowledge. That's not a very high birth. But the potential is very high there. So you start there, and you hear the mantra from the teacher, and you practice it, and you hear the scriptures in line with it, because in the scriptures you'll hear that the mantra is consisting of Om, right? That's the first word of almost every good mantra. Every good mother mantra starts with Om. And then from there it'll go in different directions depending on whether you love Shiva or Vishnu or Ganesha or Shakti herself. it'll have a different God with form, name associated with it. So you have to understand the deity and make a connection, and then you have to also understand the word Om. So as far as the deity and the connection, Holy Mother said, when I was with Sri Ramakrishna, he taught me all the mantras and how they connect to the deities. I tell you that nobody has that kind of knowledge and wisdom. What to speak of realizing it and having darshan with those deities, as Ramakrishna did himself. So he was the one to pass these along to her as she was a young woman. He was much older than she was. She got married to him when she was 5, I think, and didn't see him very much again until she was in her late teens. So when she came, then he started teaching her all, he was in his 30s, she started teaching her all of these, the fruits of all of his spiritual experiences. He was having visions of Sita, the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. He's having visions of Hanuman, and of course Christ, and his vision of Christ and Muhammad were all very beautiful. So he had these mantras and these connections inside. These are like your ticket to the concert, you see. It's like your way through the membrane. They say if you have Mother Mantra, every god and god, or every guardian at the gate will stand aside for you. Oh, you may pass if you have that mantra. So you get this powerful mantra from the Guru. You can't just get it from a book or from hearsay. People are now giving mantras on the beach. Say, oh, I'll initiate you on the beach, here, come. So you get a mantra from a businessman? What do you expect if all of a sudden you start thinking about money all the time? You got to get a mantra from a Guru who's spiritually realized, from an illumined soul, my teacher used to say. And when you get it from an illumined soul, as he used to say, then you're assured of spiritual awakening. There's no doubt about it. It's just a matter of time. So in that matter of time, she says, start here in the heart. So the mantra is going to help you get to the heart. It's going to help you transcend these three. In fact, I can tell you a quote from her right now. She said, mantra is not the end-all and be-all of everything. It's a practice. But it's one of the most universal practices of all. If you look at the religions, Sufism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity with the rosary, Hinduism, and so forth, you'll find the beads in them all, and the mantra in some form there in every one of them. It's a universal practice. So that's going to be very good for you to use that to bring this energy up. So start in the head, go to the start in the heart, go to the head. That's a whole different area. She's cutting to the chase. You see, when she says something like that, she's already assuming that you've already transcended these lower chakras and that you're beginning to work at the heart, throat, third eye, and crown chakra levels. Very rare, that last one, to find anyone able to go there. So they say that's the 4 seats of Lord Brahma, the creator, the projector of all the universes. Here, is his first seat, here's his second seat, here's his third, and here's his fourth. This is the jiva, this is the prana, this is Ishvara, and this is the resplendent one, Brahman itself, the 4 seats of Lord Brahma. So if you find your way back to the cosmic mind, Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, the primal seed, the unstruck sound, then you're going to have to know what Om means. And that's what I want to finish off this little talk about. The answer to this question is that the scriptures come important, don't they? Because the scriptures are going to tell you what Om is. You can walk around the whole world and ask people what Om is. I saw Om painted on a rock in Central Park in New York City when I was in my 20s with spray paint. Somebody had printed Om Eternal. So everyone knows about Om, but nobody knows Om. People are walking around with it on their t-shirts. College kids are whispering to each other, do you know that word Om? Isn't that cool? And there used to be blue light posters with Om on it in the 60s when people were getting into it. But who knows Om? Only the one that has meditated on it. And to meditate on it means you know it has 4 mantras, A, U, M, and the little shvara, the little, I call it the one-eyed smile. See, that's A, U, M, and the little one-eyed smile is the shvara. That's not connected. You know the drill. We get the kids together and we make a huge Om sign out of dominoes. See? And then they can't hardly wait to knock it down, you see. So finally, they hit the first domino and the whole thing falls right on up to the tail. But the shvara remains untouched. It doesn't fall down. That's the transcendent reality. And this is the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state. And the heart is the waking state. Throat is the dreaming state. Third eye is the deep sleep state. And the crown is Turiya. See, 4 seats of Brahma. So you've now connected a whole sets of 3s and 4s together. Now when you go into meditation, aren't you going to start at the heart and go to the head? Without any delays, without any interruptions, without any obstacles? Or are you going to have this on again, off again, running hot, running cold kind of spiritual life over 30, 40, 50 years of your life? Not ending with any definite siddhanta or conclusion about the thing. Oh yeah, I chanted Om, it didn't work. I tried spiritual life, it didn't work for me. That's utter nonsense. Put it all together. So when you have a statement like this, and a very good question from one of the students, then worship ends in meditation. So worship isn't just, as we say, devotions before the altar, as I was saying last Sunday. It also has to do with the altar, realizing that the altar is within you. In the shrine of the heart, they say. That's where you come home, isn't it? That's why we always sing that song. No, no, chalo nija niketane. Means, oh mind, mono, oh mind, come back to your own home. See, come to your heart. And always dwell there. See? If you awaken Mother Shama in the heart, another song sings, then she will open your third eye. So people often ask me, I'm meditating at the third eye now. And I said, no, don't do that. Meditate at the heart. How dare you jump to the third eye? You're going to open everything up early, too early, prematurely? Well, you think people have strange Kundalini experiences. Write about them in books. Kundalini isn't a painful thing. Very natural. Just let Mother do it. So this is basically what she's saying here. It's bhakti and devotion accomplishes everything. If you love Mother, then you don't need any cheap bribes. You don't need to sacrifice a buffalo to her, or do some ritual, or even a big 3-hour puja to her. You just love her. And then basically that love, it will start in the heart as authentic devotion, and you'll feel wisdom, you'll feel vision, you'll see her, and then pretty soon there is no limit to the 1,000. There was a Sahasrara, you see, 1,000-pointed crown in the head. So put all this together, when you hear a great saying from a great soul like this, and I would say that I'm biased, no doubt, but she's my Param Guru, but there is no greater soul than this, Sarada Devi, Divine Mother incarnate in human form. So many songs written about her I could play. So when you hear a great saying like that from the lips of a illumined soul like that, make sure you take it in context and leave room for all sides of her interpretation based on your study of her. Remember that she said mantra was very important. She was very positive about the scriptures. You had to know the revealed scriptures, the difference between them and the ordinary scriptures. And then when you have these things put together, meditate, and the process will be very natural. The Kundalini will arise very naturally. You probably won't even be able to say, oh, now it's at the throat, now it's at the head. You know, because the real truth of Kundalini is, and I know it's not a teaching that's taught that often, but it's the way I feel it is that Kundalini doesn't rise at all. It's already at every chakra. And it's your consciousness, your mind that's acclimatizing to each different 1,000-foot climb of that mountain. See? Even the mules have to stop at 10,000 feet here on Haleakala out there and on Mauna Loa, to get their breath and get acclimatized to the next 1,000 feet. So if you just follow that natural inward ascension, we used to call it in the old days, inward ascension, then this Kundalini is rising naturally. There's no measuring her. And just read Ramakrishna's life in the Gospel. He wasn't saying, oh, now I'm at the third eye, now I'm at the crown, now I'm at the heart. It became pretty obvious where he was. And actually, that comes in line with the second question of these three that have been sent in tonight. This person says, it's anonymous, how do I know that I am practicing sublimation successfully? How is it different from suppression? So it's a tantric question. One of the great teachings of beings like Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and others who no doubt are Advaitas. Holy Mother used to say, Ramakrishna was a non-dualist, therefore you, his student, are a non-dualist. But nobody can dwell at non-dualism all the time. Ramakrishna used to say himself that a bird may fly very high, but it has to come and rest on a branch sometimes. So no matter how spiritually inclined you are, you're going to have to come down from this chakra. And he used to say himself, I used to come down to the heart chakra because that's the living room of God. That's his parlor. That's where I can meet the devotees, dance, sing, and cut capers with them, you see. So here's where I come, down to the heart. So in that way, the tantric teaching is more amenable to people than sometimes the non-dualistic or the Vedanta or the Zen and that kind of thing. It leaves them wiggle room. See, leaves them some concession. They don't always have to be striving for the highest, leaping for different levels of consciousness and so forth. They can abide naturally at each one as it happens, as I was just saying in answer to the last question. So sublimation is probably the only good English word we have for that process. And of course the red lights go off in the psychotherapists' minds and the psychologists and so forth, because sublimation could be very much mistaken for suppression, just like sattva can be mistaken for tamas. Sattva, a person's lying there in perfect bliss, and another person's lying there completely slothful. They both look the same, you see. But so you'd have to develop a little discrimination to know that this person's in perfect balance and this person is out to lunch. See, is gone. His consciousness is gone. So it's the same, really, with this sublimation. This idea of sublimation. It's a way of taking the energy up the spine, and we all know that, unlike some of the superfluous teachers that taught in the 60s, I'm sorry to say, that led us wrong, it starts with food. It doesn't start with asana, and it doesn't start with breathing exercises. It starts with food. And when you realize the divinity of food, and you bless the food, and you take that food in, that's the first basis for divinity in anything. It all starts with food. So you realize the prana in the food, and so you're going to have to find a way of extracting it, aren't you? So that's going to mean mantra. You see how this all connects. So you have a mantra that you say over the food, and you take the food and you offer it to the deity within you, and the deity is pleased, and it starts to awaken. I mean, there's one way of putting it. So when that awakening starts happening, you feel mukhya prana. And that's called the energy of good health. Mukhya prana is a kind of prana that means the yogi always has good health. Even when a yogi or yogini gets sick or something, they say, well, that's nothing, that's the body. I'm not sick, the body's sick. It'll go away if I don't concentrate on it. So sublimation is happening even at that level, just by not watering the weeds, but always watering the flowers. It's called Pratyusha Bomb in Sanskrit, an ancient teaching long before St. Francis came up with it. So this idea of raising the energy has to start with mukhya prana, When you get this, the problem is when you get this prana going, people rest there. Oh, I feel healthy, everything's fine now. I'm all right, you're all right. See? And that becomes your mantra. But nothing's ever all right in Maya. Nothing's ever all right until you start with the heart and go to the head. And this becomes your residence. You befriend Lord Brahma, and you love the Mother of the Universe. Then everything's all right because you're given to them. They will take care of you, like the teaching we had right here on Sunday. Samipya, Salokya, Sarupya, and Sayuja. You become very dear to them first. So you make yourself dear to them. You butter them up. It's like your mother and father. And then they take care of you. That was Ramakrishna's secret. The mother loved him. That's why he was able to do so much what he did. He often said that. So back to this energy, this divine energy, Mukhya Prana. Don't stop with feeling good. Good health. That's where the yogis stop. Say, oh, I've got good health, now I can get longevity. But the real student of, really pretty much talking Kundalini here, because Ramakrishna says nothing happens without the awakening of Kundalini. You can be a Shaivite, you can be a Shakta, you can be a Vaishnava, you can be a Advaitist, you can be a philosopher, you can be anything, and love anyone, or practice any religion, but it all has to do with the awakening of Shakti. And the Kundalini system, therefore, is that one very esoteric system that puts it in those terms. It's the most mystical of all of them. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but that's the case with it. It's very inward. And so raising this energy beyond the Mukhya Prana is going to be very important. That's sublimation. And so if I wanted to, I could go on with that process. Basically, just to put it in a nutshell, when you get good energy, healthy energy, then you start doing tapas. You start doing sadhana. Because sadhana is the defining mechanism for realization. You have to do spiritual practice. You have to, it's just like boiling milk until it gets thick. See, they use different analogies for that. Smelting gold until it becomes pure of all dross, that kind of thing. You want to extract the essence. And so sadhana is going to do that with this healthy energy. You're going to take it into the periphery of your practice, and your practice will turn it into what they call tejas, light. Ojas, and then tejas. So this is back to the second question, where mantra and scripture come in. You think she's going to X that out of the equation when she knows that you're working on these subservient levels. You see, you have to bring your energy up. So from food to mantra to good energy, healthy energy, Mukhya Prana, to Ojas to Tejas, that's sublimation. Now, to answer the question directly, how do I know that I am practicing sublimation successfully, and how is it different from suppression? Because of the light that comes flooding out of you, because of the clarity of your mind. It's called khyati in Buddhism and in yoga, both. They both use the term khyati, it means clarity. And from khyati comes dharma mega samadhi, the rain of virtues, rain cloud of virtues. So all of a sudden, the scriptures have even decided it. Oh, a good voice, clear complexion, scantiness of excretions. There's this whole line of descriptions in the scriptures that describe successful sublimation. So look for the result, measure the result, not in the way of how spiritual I am, or how much of a fool I am. You can't gauge spirituality in that way. You just look for the result, how you're feeling, and I don't mean that emotionally, how you're feeling spiritually. Because many people come to me and I sit with them and I say, well, tell me what you've done spiritually. And they start reading me the resume of their life, and I have to stop them and say, no, not that. That's earthly life. In fact, sometimes that's just plain worldly life. When I say spirituality, I want to know what you've done in your practice. I want to know what you've attained. what level you've attained. How's your understanding? A couple of the Ramakrishna monks in the old days met an old Swami, an old monk along the trail, and they said, they walked up to him and they said, "How's your vision?" He said, "Oh, not too bad. I can still read the phone book with my glasses on." They both laughed and walked away. They wasn't talking about his eye vision. They're talking about his spiritual vision. What should monks talk about on the trail along the Himalayas? Phone books? So they were completely in stitches about this. My teacher used to tell that joke. "How's your vision?" He should have said, "Well, I find myself here, sometimes here. I'm getting visions of my chosen deity. I know what Ishvara is. I know the truth. The truth is setting me free," whatever. But this is what we mean by the results of successful sublimation. Joy, happiness. If you're not that kind of person, then contentment. If you're not that kind of person, then contemplation, introspection, meditation, if you're an introspective person. So anyway, I'm going on and on about it, but that's how you know the difference between sublimation and suppression. Suppression will also have its negative results. You'll feel anger coming up once in a while. It'll be hard to control it. You'll feel lust returning to you a lot, and aggravation and frustration, those things. That would mean that the sublimation process, somewhere along the line, there's a break. You know how Ramakrishna told it, that person's tapping out a message at one village, and up a mile or two up the pathway, they're not receiving it. Why? Because there's a break in the line somewhere. The monkeys have been playing, the trees usually. So they send out a crew, and the crew finds this break and ties it off, and then the message can get through. That's what you have. Monkeys playing in the nadis, in the nerves that go from your lowest chakra to your middle chakras to your heart to your head. You've got a whole network of telegraph lines. Hundreds and thousands of them, subtle ones. We know what happens when one of the physical nerves gets pinched, then there's atrophy and there's no passage of blood or energy. But the same is true with the prana energy, and the same is true then with the psychic energy, and the same is true with the intellectual energy. If these get cramped, it's like stepping on a hose, and the water cannot get through, and that nerve channel is leading somewhere vital. In the physical body, it's leading to the heart, lungs, and thyroid, and so forth, but in the subtle body, it's leading to the mind, to the kingdoms of heaven within you, is where it's leading. And that's why you can't die consciously and be reborn consciously, because of these pinched nadis, because of this stoppage in your energy, in your prana. So suppression will show this up. Actually, to the yogi, if you're detached, that's a good thing too. If something negative is happening to you, you should stop and look at that. It's a great sign. It'll get you over your imperfections faster than anything else. A lot faster than bliss will, because bliss can be very on again, off again, and throw you into imbalance. We used to talk about our bliss experiences back in the early days when we were first getting into meditation, and we concluded that we don't want them. We want equanimity. I like sthiti samadhi. I like to be steady. I don't like spikes and valleys, because it wears out my nervous system and it wastes time. My day gets thrown off balance. If I get bliss, I have to recover from it the next day. This is a delicate physical body here. It's not made for bliss. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the result of samadhi is disease. He put it pretty bluntly. If you get samadhi a lot, the body's not going to be able to take it. It's going to hurry along to its death. And of course, somebody in samadhi doesn't care about that. The quicker the better, thank you. Because I've got a hold of the tiger's tail, and I've got a hold of the essence itself. The body can fall away like a leaf, a blown off leaf in a gale, he said. Of course, he could take it back and put it on the tree. And that was a very rare soul that can come back out of samadhi and do that. So anyway, this repression or this suppression that happens, that has its signs too, and it won't be hard to recognize them. Something's not right. See, there's something not right here in my Purusha. Purusha means inner city, the inner city.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, there's a follow-up question.
So when people think about sublimation and they think about suppression, it's usually that they're working with desires and impulses, for what they want to experience through the senses. So can you just link that into this? So, because I think when I've heard you talk about sublimation before, and you've talked about it just as you have now, it has to do with taking that energy and studying. How does that, doing sadhana, spiritual practice, what's the relationship between doing that with your energy and controlling the senses versus suppressing the senses?
It's, if you're naturally given to sadhana or spiritual practice, and of course you are practicing the art of watering the flowers and not the weeds. It's just a matter of where your attention span, how long your attention span is, and how intensely you can give it to anything. So in my case, just speaking from my own experience, I was given to the scriptures at a young age. And from 20 on, I was reading scriptures and was very engrossed in them. Or they weren't boring to me or dry, or in any given day, I could have a dry day, and then the scriptures wouldn't seem living. But when I was balanced and I was in a sattvic mood, then the scriptures were giving me light. They were feeding me, and that feeding was a kind of recognition. So as long as I was in the scriptures, or as long as I was concentrating on the mantra, or as long as you're meditating, then you're not allowing the mind to brood. Brooding is the worst waste of time in the world, and you can, of course, the worldly brood, and they brood on money and family and and relationships and problems and so forth. But the spiritual aspirant too is given to brooding. It's a lower chakra kind of connection again that you have to overcome. So the more you can give your mind to these positive practices, the less you're watering the flowers of desire, because desire is a satiation never comes kind of quotient. You'll never satisfy desire. You're just putting gasoline on a fire, trying to get rid of desire. That's unstoppable, unquenchable. So you have to practice, asamvedana is a nice Sanskrit word. It even sounds like awesome, but it's not the word awesome, but asamvedana means becoming transparent to your desires. That is, they'll come looking for you, but you're just ghost-like. They just go through you. So you're not pulled by them. You're not at all conditioned by them. And so you're not affected by them when they show up. And so they die out quick. So you just take the mind off of those. Of course, you'll have to identify them first to see what you're hung up on, as they say. What's your worst obstacle and so forth. And then you just take your mind off that. It's an ancient art, and the best way to say it is just do away with brooding. Don't spend any time brooding. It was one of the early teachings I got from our founder, Lex Ixon. He was 10 years my senior, and a Western Caucasian man, student of Swami Nikhilananda, brilliant. And I asked him once about it, and he said, the practice you need to do is not asceticism or any of that. Just inspect your mind, find out what's problematic there, and do away with it. So you're going to have to develop a mind that can look at its own consciousness. Very tricky, It's very clever of him to say that, because you're thinking you're working on your problems and getting rid of them. But the mind can't get rid of its problems. The mind is the seat of problems, of all problems. So when you're concentrating on your mind to find those problems, what you're actually doing is practicing non-duality, because you're going to develop the ability to concentrate on your own consciousness. And that's the real essence that they don't tell you. How can you take something out and look at it, you see? Take your own consciousness out and examine it. And when you take your consciousness out and examine it, you'll find out that it's perfect. Atman. And when you take your mind out and examine it, you'll find out that it's the cause of all happiness and all sorrow. It's the cause of the worlds. The mind has created the worlds. God has nothing to do with it. So all of a sudden, khyati, clarity, comes. And in that clarity, ignorance dies. And you cannot run away from the truth anymore. It's found you. And you found it. It likes you, you like it. 7 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as we were saying last Sunday. So, desire, the resist not evil is probably one of the best ways of saying that. I don't think they've unwrapped that properly in Christianity myself. I've never heard it really unwrapped properly, but resist not evil, it's not what people are doing, is it? You go to war to make peace, that's not resisting not evil. But yet, Christianity has been brandishing the sword in the name of God for centuries. Many religions have. So, that stance of ahimsa, ahimsasana, you have to have a mental stance of nonviolence before you enter into this field of spirituality, because in spirituality you find out that you cannot harm anything. It's not that thou shalt not kill, it's that thou cannot kill. You cannot kill something that's unborn. So all these things that you're concentrating on are things that are rising and falling in Maya, and those are unreal. You can't kill them either. So you can't kill your own consciousness because it's unborn, and you can't kill these other things because they're illusory. So what have you got left to fight about, you see? So the most important of all the yamas in yoga is ahimsa. You start with nonviolence. In Tantra too, 7 qualifications for the Tantric aspirant. The first one is ahimsa. You must be nonviolent. In thought, word, and deed. And so, well, that's going to show up if, its opposite's going to show up, himsa, violence, if you practice sublimation and fail. If you're doing it wrong, then this repression or suppression will start to kick up as anger and lust and greed and envy and jealousy and pride and arrogance. And those will lead to grief and shame, pride of caste, pride of lineage, remorse, arrogance, shame. The 6 passions and the 8 fetters, they're well known to the practitioners of Vedanta. So that's pretty much the answer to the two-part question. Thank you for your addition to that. Sublimation will have its positive results. You'll be able to see it. There won't be any doubting the difference between that and suppression. Now, we have one more question. Do we have time for it? I don't think so.
We have 6 minutes, but we started late. You can go later if you want.
6 minutes. Well, I can give a quick answer to this and then maybe take it up again at another satsang. This person writes in about the pranamaya kosha. Already we're looking at far more than 6 minutes. That's in a word like that. Pranamaya kosha accompanies the subtle body at the time of death. That's the body of energy, subtle energy. Since this indicates a kind of independence of the pranamaya kosha from the physical body, then I wonder if it needs to be replenished at all through eating. In recent readings, I came across a teaching that there are 3 parts to food. 1 part is expelled as waste, 1 part nourishes the body on a physical level, and the 3rd part is pranic. What exactly does this 3rd part of food nourish? I imagine it's the pranamaya kosha that's nourished and replenished. But if it's independent of the physical body, why would it need to be replenished at all? A little bit circular there, because you're talking about just at the time of death. Yes, it's not going to be need to be replenished when it leaves the body, but when it's with the body, it's going to be the source through which nutrition comes. Man does not live by bread alone is the best way of saying that. There's another energy that's flowing into that person through these nadis, through the pranamaya kosha. Also, another thing to clarify here is, he says, if it's independent of the physical body, why does it need to be replenished? We have to think of the 5 koshas, and again, we had them right here on a chart last Sunday. We saw the little target chart. There's the Annamaya kosha, the body, the Pranamaya kosha, the energy, the Manomaya kosha, the mind, the Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellect, and the Anandamaya kosha, the ego. And then the Atman and Brahman permeating all of those. So, yes, they're separated, apparently so. They have their own area of operations, but aren't one enclosed inside the other, as we were saying, like little Russian dolls back inside of each other. So really, independent is a word you have to use sort of tongue-in-cheek there, because they say that each one of those sheaths infuses the other. So Annamaya kosha, the body, is infused with the Pranamaya kosha, and then the Manomaya kosha infuses those two, and then the Vijnanamaya kosha infuses those 3 with intelligence, and the Anandamaya kosha infuses those with the sense of bliss. So they're all connected. So you can't really call them independent. The nourishment really is coming from the source of bliss, isn't it? And through intelligence is nourishing. And then the mind is the channel through which it passes, and then it turns into prana, and then it turns into the physical body. So in that march outward, there are 5 different causes or 5 different sources of nourishment. So that's what I would say to that question, is that you can't separate the pranamaya kosha from the annamaya kosha. And in fact, you say, yes, you can after death, but the pranamaya kosha is already formulating new bodies for the future. It's probably, they say in some of the scriptures and some of the teachers I've heard say that even before the annamaya kosha, the present body is dying. It's already formed its next body. I remember when Mr. Morosi, the Vedanta teacher in Honolulu, used to teach us that, it's like a little worm that's looking for a hold. This is the body, and this is the prana. It's trying to find its next purchase point, and when it finds that purchase point, it'll pull itself to that and drop this body. So he means by that hold is the next body. That's how the prana is moving along, sort of like an inchworm, taking on body after body after body. So that's not independence of any kind, not just spiritual independence, but it's not independence from nourishment either. I mean, the womb and the umbilical cord are just a physical representation of that very process, aren't they? Something that's connecting one body to another. So when it comes down to the mother and the fetus, then of course it's all in the physical. The prana is not given any credence yet. Most people don't know about it. So if you're saying it's independent after death, no, I'm sorry, it's not. It's already created its body before it's dying. It's already through the pranic ethers, it's already set up its next body. Most beings. When that doesn't happen is when the realized soul says, I do not want to be born again. Or I do not want to be born again in the heavens, in the Devayana or the Pitrayana. I don't want to be born in the ancestor realm or the gods realm, because the gods and ancestors return to earth. What do you think great, really powerful souls on earth are? They were part of the Devayana, they were part of the realm of the gods, and they came here with all these powers. And so they're great scientists and great philosophers and great beings, but the greatest of all these beings are those who transcend those chakras, as we were just saying, and begin to think in terms of no more rebirth. No more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. No more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. So this person who wrote that song is thinking already in terms of a mind-born son, intelligence-born, not a matter-born process. So that process of independence is not there here in this connection, but it's very much there in the case of a soul who has transcended the third chakra and is already looking beyond heaven, earth, and hell. Lower heavens and higher heavens both, wants beyond them. The Vedantas I heard in the early times say, we're not interested in heaven. Sorry. Sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Christian or Mr. Hindu that's attached to your gods and goddesses. We want out. We don't want to be in that Kala chakra anymore. Wheel of birth and death in time. We'll transcend those three worlds and realize our true self, Atman, which again is infusing all five of those sheaths that are, which are assumptions. You assume the sheaths and then you give them up. You assume them and you give them up. Only by association does the seer relate to this world, never by identification. Only by association. So I think we have gone to our time limit, and we should end here with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya, Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya, Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya, Avira Avira Mayeti, Rudrayate Dakshina Mukam, Tenamam Pahinicham, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light, from lower truth to higher truth, from the unreal to the real, and from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.